Hello, I am Allison Murtis, an AT consultant and teacher of deaf and hard of hearing students at Blast IU 17. And today we will be doing a very basic self-advocacy discussion. We will be talking about what self-advocacy looks like in the educational setting. Wright's Law did a great job of describing what is self-advocacy, so I will just read that quickly. Self-advocacy is learning how to speak up for yourself, making your own decisions about your own life, learning how to get information so that you can understand things that are of interest to you, finding out who will support you in your journey, knowing your rights and responsibilities, problem solving, listening and learning, reaching out to when you need help and friendship, and learning about self-determination. Why is self-advocacy so important? Developing self-advocacy skills is important because those skills can promote social skills, support emotional well-being, foster confidence, and empower future success. Another reason that self-advocacy is so important is that it allows the students to participate in decisions that are being made about their own lives. This self-advocacy gets the student involved so that the decisions are being made with the student and not just for the student. Self-advocacy, we'll see in the next couple slides that it's really important, and you'll see it across all different ages, that it really should start in those toddler years and start developing the self-advocacy skills, the self-determination skills at that younger age. So then those skills are able to snowball and the student becomes more comfortable and having those skills, more familiar in using them across different settings. They will use self-advocacy skills for their entire life. So the next couple slides, we're going to discuss what are the self-advocacy skills that you could see in these ages that I've designated. These are not exhaustive lists in any means. We will also pause so that you can add anything that you might have to add. So in a preschool student, you might see them asking for help or making choices, expressing their needs and their preferences, identifying any emotions that they might be feeling, and setting boundaries. Do any of you work in a preschool setting that you can say and recommend some self-advocacy skills that you see regularly? So now we're talking about school-age students, elementary students. Elementary from kindergarten to fifth or sixth grade, that's a huge jump of age, and you're really going to see the students come into themselves and really start to pick up on the self-advocacy skills within this age. So you're going to start to see them identifying their needs. You're going to see expressing boundaries, asking for clarification, and starting to use their accommodations. This is where they will also start to realize, hey, I really need help doing this. And I do always get this accommodation. So they're going to start to make that connection. And then middle school. This is a tricky age group of children. They have hormones that make them very moody at times. So this is where sometimes self-advocacy skills can come across as maybe a little rude when they are asking for something. But this is where we, as the adult in their life, need to help them take that step back and figure out how can I do this in a much better way? So some of the skills that we will see will be understanding wants versus needs. This is also an age group that everything is a need. And sometimes we need to help them differentiate. That might be more of a want than a need. Identifying the right time and place. Not everything is instantaneous. Sometimes you have to wait for a discussion to finish before you can jump in and talk to that teacher. So just knowing and learning how to identify that, some self-awareness and communication. Communication is key across self-advocacy in any age group, but middle school students, you're really going to start to see that they're getting the vocabulary that they need. Do any of you work in the middle school setting that can offer some skills that you see on a regular basis? And then for high school students, this is where the students need to start thinking about transition. When you hit the age of 14 is when we add transition to the IEP. 14 tends to fall right around ninth grade. This is where you start to set yourself up for what you want to do after high school. And that can be a variety of things. It can be the post-secondary education. It can be independent living. It can be right to employment, but you still need to know your needs for whatever setting you go to after high school so that future readiness is really an important key for self-advocacy in high school students. Academic independence, accommodations and supports, really knowing who and what you need, knowing your rights. This is where we need to introduce them to what they have the right to have. For example, they can have an interpreter when they go to a doctor's visit, or just simple things like that. And then communicating proactively. And so this is a nice video.
It takes 90 seconds for this NASA-engineered AC cool down your room. It's smaller than a toaster, cools any room in 90 seconds, and uses just a fraction of the energy of a regular AC.
Hi, I'm Billy Pickens. When you hear the word self-advocate, what comes to mind? Do you think of a community leader or an online activist? There are so many examples of famous people with disabilities who advocate for themselves. But what if I said that you're a self-advocate too?
What the what?
That's right, you. No matter how young, how shy, or how famous you are, you have a beautiful and powerful voice. And self-advocacy is all about speaking up for yourself. Why? Because you are worth it. Think of self-advocacy as a way to tap into life's daily pleasures.
Hey, Mom, give me a listen.
And the key to making progress on your biggest dreams.
My biggest dream is to be a vet, so I'm going to do well in school.
I was given a task of making a vision board, so I figured out I wanted to be an advocate for my community.
I want to be America's best cowgirl.
I want to be a sports broadcaster, and I'm working with the baseball team.
Don't think you have this superpower? Let me tell you about some amazing people and how self-advocacy has changed their lives. Let's start with...
Now hold up, Billy. Doesn't self-advocacy mean that we need to speak up for ourselves?
Yeah?
Well, I think we should tell everyone out there what self-advocacy means to us.
You're right. Let's try that again.
Here's some amazing people telling you what self-advocacy means to them.
Getting what you need.
Standing up for myself.
Speaking up.
Overcoming anxiety to say what I think.
It's kind of like the same thing as believing in yourself, because it's important to feel like you matter.
In college, I showed I could do better using Braille instead of screen readers due to my hearing loss.
I was very tired at the end of the school day. It feels like my brain is tired and anxious in the afternoon. How about if I take the test in the morning? When I spoke up for myself, I did better in school. Okay.
One time I had a trainer. I loved my old trainers, but I was very anxious with the old place. And then I switched trainers, and my new trainer helps me a lot. I use my voice by saying, I don't understand this, and She breaks everything down for me where I can understand, and everything's just changed.
One time I advocated for myself. I was in music class. I basically just needed help with reading music. So I asked for help and I got what I needed.
I have 2 jobs, and I had to talk to my manager about my scheduling conflicts. So Calvin, my cannonballers are going to be playing this Monday. I would say that if there's any problem that goes on inside of a workplace environment, find your manager, find your boss, and tell them what's going on.
How are the ballers doing nowadays?
It's kind of scary the first couple of times you do it because you're worried that you might get in trouble or for saying what you need.
Maybe they think that they don't need any help, that they could do it themselves, but asking for help can help you very much. It helped me.
And I know that a lot of people may be anxious about it, so maybe try talking to your mom or dad. Try using your voice a little bit, because I know you can do it.
It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be scared. Just keep practicing. And by practicing, if you practice, you'll get better and better.
If you're not going to try, then you might not get it, because sometimes you got to put yourself out there.
Someone could help you by just asking simple questions like, how was your day? Are you okay? Do you need some help?
They need to understand my disability. It is really kind of main objective number 1. So that way they can get a better understanding of what I have to deal with.
When I am asked the question, it may take me a little while or a long time to think up an answer, and it takes even more to get it out. So if you're a teacher or someone around me, I hope you understand that.
Be nice, be super friendly, be inclusive to the person with the disability.
Look at me for me and not my disability.
We are all so different, but one thing we have in common is that we can all advocate in some way for ourselves. But hey, I get it. If you're not ready to jump in, it's okay. Take your time. When you do feel ready to speak up, say it with me and say it like you mean it. I can advocate for myself. That's right. And guess what? You can too.
I stand up for myself.
I tell others what I need.
Don't be afraid to ask for what you want.
Speak up and be heard.
All right. So the next remaining part of the presentation will also kind of jump into some things that were added to that video. So what is your role in building self-advocacy for our students? So your role needs to be supporting the students as they learn, allowing the students to make mistakes when they are advocating for themselves, but then to help them work through those mistakes. Sit down and talk with them. So if they do come across as rude when asking for something, let's give them some prompts and be like, hey, I love the way that you ask for that, but let's maybe try and do it in this manner so that it doesn't come across that way. You need to celebrate any attempts at self-advocacy. Anytime they do stand up for themselves or they ask for something that they need or that they want, celebrate all of it. And then facilitate the discussion of how skills practiced in school correlate to skills needed in areas outside of school. The students will need help knowing that, being on time for class will also help you then be on time for work or appointments or different things like that. How being prepared for class can then help you be prepared for work and different things like that. And then talk about self-advocacy frequently. Make it second nature. Add it to everything, all of your daily routines that you're doing within the classroom. It needs to be built in, and the students really need to be comfortable with it. They need to model everything. Students need to see it being used. I personally have a really hard time understanding people when they turn their heads when they're talking to me. This happens a lot when you're out in public and they go to point to something that, well, you ask a direction and then they point the direction in which you want to go, but they also turn their head and then I can't see and hear what they've said. So just things like that. So if you're modeling and just say like, excuse me, can you please look at me when you say that so I can hear you better? Just different things like that. Students need to see you modeling their self-advocacy and also for yourself. We might not all have disabilities, but we all do need things to help us understand better. So, closed captioning helps everybody. I love having closed captioning on. So just advocating and asking a teacher to use the closed captioning for myself is only going to help other students. Yeah. And practice is super important with all of these students, with all of these skills. If they are not practiced on a regular basis, they won't become second nature. The students will not become comfortable with asking, with comfortable with using them. They also need to use them across multiple settings. Sometimes when they're in the small group setting, it's a lot easier to be more comfortable. You are probably a person that the student sees almost their entire school day, so they become comfortable with you. But they also need to become comfortable with the cafeteria ladies or the gym teacher. Recess can be tricky sometimes to have to know what's happening and who to go to. So you need to help them use those skills, not just when they are comfortable in a small setting, but across multiple settings. Role playing is a great way to practice self-advocacy skills. It gives them the language that they need to demonstrate the self-advocacy skills. It can feel a little uncomfortable at first. It feels awkward, 100%. But the more that it is practiced and the more natural we try to make the role playing, it will help them. The pre-scripted dialogue helps them practice those things, those sentences of knowing what to say, maybe even just a sentence starter for them, and then they can finish. But as they start to memorize them and use them on a daily basis, they will become more familiar with them. So there are going to be all kinds of tools that students need to self-advocate for themselves. It could be something as simple as the calm down corner. It could be something like a wiggle chair. It could be a break that they need. It could be a signal to have that break. Different areas of special ed are going to use different tools to help in the educational setting. It could be something as simple as manipulatives in math class, using a calculator or a ruler. So the students need to know the tools that they have access to, and then they need to make sure that they have full access to them and that they have them across different settings.